à tous. While photographers are at it for a few extra minutes, pendant que les photographes s'affairent encore quelques instants, let me remind you of the routine. Permettez-moi de vous rappeler la routine. Si vous avez une question à poser, soyez gentil de nous faire signe un peu à l'avance, de sorte qu'on puisse vous voir. De façon également à ce que le micro vous soit porté. Quand vous avez un micro, soyez gentil de vous lever, de vous présenter, de poser votre question, de vous rasseoir et de rendre le micro. Let me remind you of the routine. When you want to ask a question, please raise your hand a little bit ahead of time so we can see you. More importantly, so that we can bring the microphones to you wherever you're sitting. When you have the microphone, please stand up, introduce yourself, ask your question, then sit down and give the mic back. Thank you very much. Messieurs les photographes, s'il vous plaît. Merci. Merci. Bonjour à tous, hello everyone, et bienvenue à la conférence de presse de Neon Demon. La conférence de presse de Neon Demon. I don't know which language I'm saying. Anyway, I'll switch to English. And allow me to introduce the people who are here with us today. Starting at my far left, she was associated with the foundation of Zentropa Lars von Trier, and as such, I guess came to Cannes in various capacities for Kingdom 1 and 2, for The Idiots, for Breaking the Waves, for, Dancer in the Dark, Dogville, Mandalay. Then when she left Zentropa, she partnered with Mr. Reffen. This is the producer, Lenny Bogdan. Sitting next to me and coming almost from another planet, he was a drummer with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He was also the drummer for another band named the
Captain Beefheart.
There you go. He was also, by some mysterious ways, associated with Steven Soderbergh and Text Lies and Videotape, which was shown here in Cannes, and continued working with Mr. Soderbergh on Kafka, on The Limey, on Traffic, Solaris, and Contagion. Mr. Cliff Martinez. Sitting next to the producer, he started out as a cameraman with Michael Ballhaus on Gangs of New York, directed by Martin Scorsese. Then he switched to editing, and as such, he worked 6 times with Mr. Nicholas Winding Refn. This is Matthew Newman. The young lady sitting here, we saw, in Babel, in Benjamin Button, she worked with both Coppolas, Sofia Coppola on Somewhere, and Francis Ford Coppola on Twist. Both of them were in Cannes, as Jessie Miss Ellie Fanning.
Jason Weber from Cineplex.com and Twitch Film. First of all, congratulations on the film. It's absolutely stunning. Nicholas, it felt like it was a Robert Palmer.
I'm sorry.
How do we introduce the director?
I haven't. Okay, Nicholas Winding Refn. Third film I think that he has in Cannes. The first one was Drive. The second one was Only God Forgives. Welcome to your third visit, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, ask your question now.
There you go. Nicholas, that feels like a Robert Palmer video directed by Dario Argento. I'm just wondering if you could talk about the aesthetic, talk about the whole look, and your own relationship with the world of modeling. And Elle, if you could talk about your the tenuousness, the sort of fleeting nature of beauty within the, not only the modeling community, but certainly within performance, and how perhaps in your own experience you've seen people who maybe misjudge you based on what's on the outside instead of what you're actually capable of doing on screen.
Well, I mean, for my, since I'm extremely dyslexic, images has always been a very integrated part of my understanding. But I also didn't learn to understand English until I was very late, and we lived in New York. So images and a strange sound of a language was very much how my education was for many years. I don't really know what I do in a sense of I just look at a blank wall and I think, what would I like to see today? And it's how I make films, and it's a very instinctive and satisfying way, sometimes puzzling or frustrating for other people, including myself, but there's something so beautifully perverse about just sexualizing everything around you to just what would you like to see, what arouses you. And with the Neon Demon, I was very much, because it's kind of the irony is that with Drive, I reached kind of a height of male masculinity to the extent of homoeroticism that within God Forgives is about emasculations and crawling back into the womb of your mother, where all men come from, ladies. And what was going to be next? Well, obviously, I could live out my perverse dream of being a 16-year-old girl, which I think every man has inside of him. And but in order to do that, I needed to find the girl. And I was blessed with this opportunity in my house in LA of Elle Fanning agreeing to come meet me, and I was like, oh my God, you're me. Would you like to make a movie together? And it has to be about you because you're 16, and I can channel through that, but you take the lead. And when you're turning 17 and when you're turning 18, okay, all right, well then we'll do it now. We'll turn 17 and then we'll premiere at Cannes when we're 18, which is the fucking day of her prom, ladies and gentlemen. Now, talk about a fucking party, And we had the pre-Amphar last night, which was like the kind of pre-prom party, but tonight, Elle is turning 18 and she's prom.
Yeah, for me, with this character, I guess, in a way you'd say this film is more, I always like to choose different roles that are, things that are interesting and kind of pique my interest in a way, but this was, I guess, more darker role that I had done, and I think that on the outside, it's, I'm a very kind of happy person, but everyone has kind of the good and bad in them. So it was fun to explore that side, and since we shoot in chronological order, it was amazing because Jessie progresses and changes so much. The day before, those were like the memories we created, so I could really kind of track her really literally turning into a complete narcissist. And yeah, in the beginning, we kind of talked about her as she's like Dorothy in a way in Wizard of Oz, because she's plopped into this world, and you don't really know where she comes from, but she's this innocent, kind of wide-eyed, looking at these sparkly things, and LA is such a neon. For a while, I was like, I kind of thought like LA was the Neon Demon in a way, because that city's so haunting but so enticing, and it sucks you in, but it will spit you out.
Question over here.
Hi, Steve from Belgium. Question for Elle. Could you relate to the meat market aspect of the movie, even though Mr. Refn takes it to extremes? But
I guess I had done, because I started out in films. My first film I did, I was 2, so kind of have been doing this pretty much my whole life, and I love it. And it's, but also you're like, oh, okay, this is. I was born in Georgia, which we kind of incorporated into the movie because we wanted to incorporate as many things as possible. So in a weird way, I'm kind of this small town girl who moved to like the big city, so I could relate to that. And then and growing up in LA, you definitely you see a lot of things, especially in the industry too. It's like, whoa, is that even being here at Cannes. This is my first time. It's so exciting, but it's like going to these parties, and it's like it's just I don't know. I felt like Jesse. You have to be able to not get sucked in too much.
Question here. Go ahead.
Karen Babb for the Huffington Post, and a question to the director, and a question to Cliff Martinez. Okay. Bravo for your film. I took it as an achievement of the contemporary sublime with terror and beauty, a fine line going on throughout the film. And I wondered where you stood with the character's statement, there is only beauty, okay? And the sublime, because I really, other people have talked about the meanings of the film. I was taking it right for the aesthetic, okay? And I enjoyed it for that. And for Cliff Martinez?
Hold the second question. Sorry.
Well, actually, that scene was based on me improvising all the dialogue. We wrote it down, and it all came down to, beauty isn't everything. It's the only thing. And that itself, I have daughters, so of course it's a very uncomfortable thing to even think about. But, we made a movie that's heightened reality. It's everything that's glorious and glamorous and vulgar and beautiful, and it's terror and beauty. It's sex and violence. It's primal. Its instinct as a film is to penetrate your mind and let it absorb whatever you make it whatever it is, essentially. And it becomes part of you, which is what's the essence of creativity is. And I think that there is something very terrifying in even thinking that the world can be only about beauty. But the reality is, if you look around, it's an obsession that has only grown. Even though we try to rationalize it, we try to politicalize it, we try to this and to that, but the digital revolution has sped up a part of man's evolution that is to the extreme. So the idea of the movie was, when I talked to Elle, was, well, let's make a movie about the obsession of beauty, which is very standard. It's in our television, it's in our print, it's in our social media, it's in our movie. It's what you guys write about. But what's going to happen when the longevity no longer exists? Meaning that how we define beauty in length shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. At the same time, it also seems to become younger and younger and younger. And that, to me, is terrifying. I have 2 daughters. And that was something that I found between us, 45-year-old man and a 6-year-old girl, to be very universal, I found. And with that, we wanted to approach it like a fairy tale, because it's a teenage horror film for teenagers. So it has to speak the language of counterculture.
And your second.
We met in Topanga, where you discussed how you told me about how you did Drive, and then you counterpointed his scenes. I think that's where you used the opposite kind of mood music for a scene which you would expect something, that's what you said. But here in this film, I loved how you did this music. And can you talk about how you did it and what your approach was, how you discussed it with the director?
Well, I guess the counterpoint idea comes from, I suppose, my film score and upbringing from Steven Soderbergh, who always told me to rarely use the music to repeat something that's already on the screen in the images or in the dialogue, and instead use the music as some kind of counterpoint. I think that storytelling is always about 80% fulfilling the audience's expectations and 20% throwing curveballs. And I like to throw about 30% curveballs. I like to do things that are a little unexpected. I think that makes the type of film that I like to watch. So a lot of the music for me I kept trying to do things that were not entirely expected, but then a lot of times you just have to do what's expected. If something's beautiful or romantic, you want to complement that, not contrast against it. As far as working with Nicholas goes, this is our third film we've done together, and I think that monogamy in a creative partnership has some advantages. We kind of have this, developed this creative shorthand over the last 3 films, and we have a, kind of a bag of tricks, and that we can fall back on. We'll just say, when we get here to this point, give me that thing that you do with the red plastic pig mask and the hard-boiled egg. And I'll say, oh, you mean a number 7. So as far as our creative partnership goes, really, I don't have any interesting anecdotes about what happened on the shoot. Most of my work takes place in a darkened bedroom. And maybe at 2 in the morning, I'll get a phone call from Nicholas from Copenhagen, and we'll look at each other in our respective bathrobes, face off, and discuss the film. And it's all very civilized, and it's probably not very fascinating discussion, but that's the process.
In your collaboration with Nicholas, has he ever shot something based on the music that you had come up with, or do you always come once he's shot?
I think it's always once he's shot, but I suspect that maybe the music has influenced the editing of the film.
Oh, very much. I mean, the kind of the trio of the group in this very much, Matt Newman and Cliff Martinez, in terms of when it comes to the musical part, I mean, where there are both in the 3 films we've done together, there are places where it's like, oh, okay, if we'll finish this here editorially, and then we'll give it to Cliff, and then he'll fix it to get it to the next level. So it's very much also a partnership creatively in terms of we each bring a piece of the puzzle to help elevate it. But it's like, we don't know what the pieces are, but it will come along the way. And the films we've done together has been, so musically dominated, and that's, one of the great partnerships is that I feel that, it's part of my own DNA. Cliff's music is so part of the existence of the film that it's like, I hear his music in my head, but I don't know what it is going to be yet. And we may talk about the design or what kind of music, in the beginning when I'm showing you the script, and we talk about the script and what kind of musical ideas, what kind of sound could be interesting. I mean, here in Neon Demon, we talk a lot about George Moroder and that, early 80s beat, like post-disco, but it was also creeping into the more alternative punk scene and progressive rock. And that was a pulse that we were very interested in. Also editorially, that Matt and I spent a lot of time deciding around, and then it becomes, like Cliff said, a very mundane back and forth, like, how's life, what are you doing, oh, this is great, let's try this, let's try that. And then the thing is, every time Cliff comes with something, it's always spot on. So it's a very, very easy process.
Any comment from your point of view, Mr. Newman?
Sorry?
Any comment from your point of view as an editor?
I would just say, on this film, we used orchestral music exclusively from the 1950s. Bernard Herrmann. When we first showed Cliff, he was like, what? I'm not doing orchestral. but it was literally the first thing he delivered was just amazing. I think any director would just thank God to have someone like Cliff on his side, because he's just.
Ladies and gentlemen, my new publicist.
It's not an exclusive deal.
Question over here. Go ahead.
Mr. Refn, over here to your left, Anthony D'Alessandro from Deadline. While it's very much a female-driven movie, I found it very interesting the way that you painted the men, and I was wondering if you could comment on that. Keanu's character, Alessandro's character, and the photographer, they're very carnal, very much powerful. If you could comment on that, and also what was going on with Keanu Reeves and the knife in her throat. Was that a vision?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, just having Keanu with a knife in someone's throat is just very exciting. And you know, Keanu's the fucking best. He's the king. So it was a great honor to have him. And when I was talking with Elle the first time, I was like, well, the idea was that all the men are like the girlfriends in other movies. And because all the women and everything else around it is the focus, it's the movie. Everything is secondary in a way. But the men represent certain approaches of either fear or control or predatorial, but essentially they're all really dominated by the female characters, because it's the female characters that allows them to be predators, or allows them to be in control, or allows them to be, you know, the boyfriend with a great heart and good morals. But I wasn't particularly interested in that world. I was interested in the women's world, and that's what I wanted to focus. But in order to create a story around it, we needed the quote-unquote girlfriends to toss in here and there.
Question over here.
Hi guys, it's Tom Westerholt, German Public Radio Network ARD. Excellent movie, everybody. One of the best of this year's competition. Congratulations. Absolutely great. Elle, you did outstanding in this movie. I mean, like you said, you're in the business since you're 2 years old. So there is a special similarity between the character you play and what can happen to a young actress in Hollywood. How did you so far avoid, and how do you still avoid to not get completely soaked in from the industry and get spit out of yourself?
Right. Well, I mean,
What's your secret, Elle?
I'm graduating this year from a normal high school. I still live with my parents. I have like such a good family. I think that they would whip me into shape if I did anything. And I also, you have to kind of separate. I used to, when I was younger, I kind of looked at going to do films as like someone going to do soccer practice or going to play a match in a way, because I'm like, all right, well, that's just my extracurricular activity. All right, then I go off and do a movie for a little bit. But once I'm home, there's that, and you're always thinking of characters, and I daydream a lot, so I'm like always in my head in that way. But once you're home, you're home, and so you have to separate it. I think that the people who just live in that movie world, like non-stop, 24/7, 100%, it's like it's too intense. You can't do that. So you kind of step out of it and take out the trash and be normal.
To the best of your knowledge, Mr. Nicholas, would you say that the fashion world is even harsher and more cruel than the acting world?
I mean, I'm not an expert, baby. No way can I either critique that world. I think that any environment that is so much focused on how you look is extremely harsh, because it really comes on how are you born? What are you born like? And that itself is such a horrible world to even live in the sense that it must be terrifying living where the reality is so extreme. But at the same time, it's also very intoxicating. It's very thrilling, it's very exciting, and it's also very frightening. But we didn't make a movie to comment or make a point or a so-called politicalization or, this is a movie of living through Elle Fanning entering this world. And that's what was so exciting. But, it's like the canvas was global.
Question over here.
Hi, Dylan Dempsey from No Film School. Question for Nicholas and Matthew. I want you to elaborate on your collaborative relationship. For example, when you're using pre-existing pop songs, or in this case Bernard Herrmann, for the score, how do you use the music as inspiration for an image without letting it take control of the movie? Are you two ever at odds when you're creating the vision?
No, Matt and I met many years ago on British television, and something happened between us that we became creative partners in that sense, and has moved together ever since. And it's very basic. I call him and I say, I have an idea for a movie. And he goes, oh, great. I'll tell my wife. and then I usually send him an idea or a synopsis, or I explain it over the phone, and he's always good with like, okay, I get it. No, okay, let me mold it around it, and let's talk about it. And then, we continue back and forth, and then the script process starts, and Matt is very much on the sideline and commenting, creative discussions, coming with points and ideas of how we could do this or do that. And then when it gets to the pre-production, usually Matt then flies in wherever I'm shooting. This time we're shooting in LA, and we were editing the movie at my pool house. When we did Drive, we edited the movie in my living room, and only God forgives, we were in a hotel room together. And that's pre, and then we start shooting, and because you shoot unlimited budgets, it just has to be like, you gotta deliver right away. So every day, my